Hello students, welcome to Nationalism in India. This is part 2 of the topic. In this video, I will discuss about the non-cooperation movement and demand for Swaraj. This video is very informative and helpful for you for scoring the good mark in exam. So be with this video till the end. Mahatma Gandhi's idea of Swaraj and non-cooperation. Question may come that what were the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi of Swaraj and non-cooperation. Mahatma Gandhi convinced his fellow leaders of the need to start a non-cooperation movement in support of Khilafat as well as for Swaraj at the Calcutta session of Congress held in September 1920. Congress session is very important, so you need to remember properly about the Congress session. This type of question may come in map pointing. Simultaneously, in his famous book Hind Swaraj 1909, Mahatma Gandhi declared that British rule was established in India with the cooperation of Indians and had survived only because of this cooperation. British rule in India would collapse within a year and Swaraj would come if Indians refused to cooperate. So according to Gandhiji, non-cooperation to British government was mandatory to throw the British rule from India and establish the independent state. Gandhiji's proposal to unfold the movement in stages. So these stages are also very important for exam perspective. First is surrender of titles. It should begin with the surrender of titles that the government awarded. Gandhiji himself returned his Kesare-Hind medal in August 1920. Then boycott. A boycott of civil services, army, police, courts and legislative councils, schools and foreign goods. Civil disobedience campaign. Then in case the government used repression, a full civil disobedience campaign would be launched. Means the stages of this non-cooperation movement was first surrender of titles, then boycott, then civil disobedience movement or campaign. Adoption of non-cooperation program. This is also very important question. How the non-cooperation program was adopted. For mobilizing popular support for the movement, Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali. Shaukat Ali was leader of Khilafat issue. If you don't know about Khilafat issue, you can watch part 1 of the topic. Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali toured extensively through the summer of 1920. In the months between September and December, there was an intense tussle within the Congress. Many within the Congress were, however, concerned about the proposals. They were reluctant to boycott the council elections scheduled for November 1920, and they feared that the movement might lead to popular violence. For a while, there seemed no meeting point between the supporters and the opponents of the movement. Finally, at the Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920, this is also very important. Congress sessions are very important. A compromise was worked out and non-cooperation program was adopted. So the non-cooperation Khilafat movement began in January 1921. Different view about non-cooperation. Various social groups have their own specific aspiration towards Swaraj and non-cooperation. Various social groups participated in this movement, each with its own specific aspiration. All of them responded to the call of Swaraj, but the term means different things to different people. According to their needs, according to their aspiration, they made their own notion about the Swaraj, about the non-cooperation. The movement in the towns. This is also very important to know that how people acted during the movement in the towns. Middle class participation. The movement started with middle class participation in the cities. Boycott of government organization. Thousands of students left government-controlled schools and colleges, headmasters and teachers resigned, and lawyers gave up their legal practices. Boycott of foreign goods and clothes. Foreign goods were boycotted, liquor shops picketed, and foreign clothes burnt in huge bonfires. Boycott of the council elections. The council elections were boycotted in most provinces except Madras. Why it was not boycotted in Madras? It is also very important to know. In Madras, the Justice Party, the party of the non-Brahmins, felt that entering the council was one way of gaining some power, something that usually only Brahmins had access to. The effects of non-cooperation. The effect of non-cooperation on the economic front were more dramatic. Due to boycott of foreign clothes, the import of foreign clothes halved between 1921 and 1922, its value dropping from rupees 102 crore to rupees 57 crore. In many places, merchants and traders refused to trade in foreign goods or finance foreign trade. As the boycott movement spread, the people began discarding imported clothes and wearing only Indian ones. Production of Indian textile mills and handlooms went up. Means after the non-cooperation movement, the import of foreign clothes decreased and the manufacture of Indian textile increased. Reasons for slowdown of the non-cooperation movement. This is also very important question for exam perspective. The non-cooperation movement gradually slowed down in the cities for a variety of reasons. Let us know the reasons one by one. Due to expensive khadi cloth. The use of khadi cloth was adopted on the replacement of the foreign clothes. Khadi cloth was often more expensive than mass-produced meal cloth and poor people could not afford to buy it. How then could they boycott meal cloth for too long? It was not possible to continue this movement for a long time because Indian fabrics were not available in market according to the need of the customer and according to the capacity of the pocket of customer. Lack of alternative Indian institutions. The boycott of British institutions posed a problem. For the movement to be successful, alternative Indian institutions had to be set up so that they could be used in place of the British ones. These were slow to come up. So students and teachers began trickling back to government schools and lawyers joined back work in government courts. Diverse vision of the people. For getting grand success in any movement and issues, people involved in it should have unified vision. But in non-cooperation movement, even activists didn't have mutual understanding. So it was not possible to continue this movement for a long time. So what were the main reasons for slowdown of the non-cooperation movement? Due to expensive Indian fabrics, lack of alternative Indian institutions, and diverse vision of the people. If you memorize the points, you can easily interpret the points. Rebellion in the countryside or rural areas. From the cities, the non-cooperation movement spread to the countryside. It drew into its fold the struggles of peasants and tribals which were developing in different parts of India in the years after the war. Non-cooperation of peasants. In countryside or rural areas, peasants have their own aspiration for non-cooperation to the British government. As I discussed earlier, that every group of the people have different notion and aspiration for non-cooperation movement. In our peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra, a sannyasi who had earlier been to Fiji as an indentured laborer. The movement here was against talukdars and landlords who demanded from peasants exorbitantly high rents and variety of other cesses. Peasants had to do begar and work at landlord's farm without any payment. As tenants, they had no security of tenure, being regularly evicted so that they could acquire no right over the leased land. Peasant movement in Awadh collaborated with non-cooperation movement. This is also a very important question. How peasant movement in Awadh was collaborated with non-cooperation movement. The peasant movement demanded reduction of revenue, abolition of begar, and social boycott of oppressive landlords. In many places, Nai, Dhobi, bunds were organized by panchayats to deprive landlords of the services of even barbers and washermen. In June 1920, Jawaharlal Nehru began going around the villages in Awadh, talking to the villagers and trying to understand their grievances. By October, the Odd Kisan Sabha was set up, headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra, and a few others. This is also a very important point. Within a month, over 300 branches had been set up in the villages around the region. So, when the non-cooperation movement began the following year, the effort of the Congress was to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into the wider struggle. The peasant movement, however, developed in forms that the Congress leadership was unhappy with. Incident of Peasants' Non-Cooperation Movement. As the movement spread in 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked, bazaars were looted, and grain hoards were taken over. In many places, local leaders told peasants that Gandhiji had declared that no taxes were to be paid and land was to be redistributed among the poor. The name of the Mahatma was being invoked to sanction all action and aspirations. Tribals' idea of Swaraj or aspiration of non-cooperation. Tribal peasants interpreted the message of Mahatma Gandhi and the idea of Swaraj in yet another way. In the Godam Hills of Andhra Pradesh, for instance, a militant guerrilla movement spread in the early 1920s, not a form of struggle that the Congress could approve. Here, as in other forest regions, the colonial government had closed large forest areas, preventing people from entering the forest to graze their cattle or to collect fuel woods and fruits. This enraged the hill people. Not only were their livelihood affected, but they felt that their traditional rights were being denied. When the government began forcing them to contribute begar for road building, the hill people revolted. So tribal group people especially revolted against their traditional rights of the forest and the grazing rights of their cattle in the forest or to collect fuel wood and fruits. Now, tribals leader Alluri Sitaraman Raju's idea of Swaraj. Alluri Sitaraman Raju, the person who came to lead the tribals of Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh, was an interesting figure. Alluri Sitaram Raju claimed that he had a variety of special powers. He could make correct astrological predictions and heal people, and he could survive even bullet shots. Captivated by Raju, the rebels proclaimed that he was an incarnation of God. Raju talked of the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi, said he was inspired by the non-cooperation movement and persuaded people to wear khadi and give up drinking. But at the same time, he asserted that India could be liberated only by the use of force, not non-violence. The Gudam rebels attacked police station, attempted to kill British officials and carried the guerrilla warfare for achieving Swaraj. Raju was captured and executed in 1924 and over time became a folk hero. Plantation workers and the notion of Swaraj. Workers too had their own understanding of Mahatma Gandhi and the notion of Swaraj, like the peasants and other social groups. For plantation workers in Assam, freedom meant the right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they were enclosed, and it meant retaining a link with the village from which they had come. Under the Inland Immigration Act of 1859, plantation workers were not permitted to leave the tea gardens without permission, and in fact, they were rarely given such permission. When they heard of the non cooperation movement, thousands of workers defied the authorities, left the plantation, and headed home. They believed that Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in their own villages. They, however, never reached their destination, stranded on the way by a railway and steamer strike. They were caught by the police and brutally beaten up. Now the question is about tribals' emotion to make Swaraj movement as all India agitation. The vision of tribal movements were not defined by the Congress program. They interpreted the term Swaraj in their own ways, imagining it to be a time when all suffering and all troubles would be over. Yet when the tribals chanted Gandhiji's name and raised a slogan demanding Swatantra Bharat, they were also emotionally relating to an all India agitation. When they acted in the name of Mahatma Gandhi or linked their movement to that of the Congress, they were identifying with a movement which went beyond the limits of their immediate locality. Nationwide withdrawal of the non-cooperation movement. This is very important topic. Due to Chauri Chaura incident, Mahatma Gandhi decided to withdraw the movement due to the Chauri Chaura incident, which occurred at Chauri Chaura in the Gorakhpur district of the United Province, modern Uttar Pradesh in British India on 5th February 1922, where 22 policemen were burnt alive when a large group of protesters participating in the non-cooperation movement clashed with police who opened fire. Then satyagrahis needed to be trained. Mahatma Gandhi felt the movement was turning violent in many places and satyagrahis needed to be trained properly for mass movement. Lack of cooperation among leaders. In different places, people and leaders have different notion as aspiration about the non-cooperation due to the different vision of Swaraj. Leaders of different places or different social groups could not connect with each other. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe.